we've got UFC returning to London. They have not been to London since 2019. That was on the fight card that Jorge Masvidal. This was like the first moment that Masvidal made a big statement when he went into London and knocked out Darren Till. And then after he knocked out Darren Till, that's when the three piece and a soda interview happened. He was getting interviewed, and then Leon Edwards was in the corner like talking to him, and he walked up and he punched him. That's where the three piece and a soda quote came from. But they haven't been back, and this will be the first time back since the pandemic, and there is a ton of fights that are going to be fun to watch. They have basically loaded this card up with, a bunch of people from the UK, but also like this. I mean, this card arguably could be better than some of the pay per views we've seen lately. Like from the prelims all the way up, even. So I want to touch on the fights I'm most excited for, but there's a lot of them. So first of all, Mohamed Makayev versus Cody Durden. Makayev is undefeated. He's 6-0 in MMA, and he's only 21, but he's got a crazy background in wrestling and jiu-jitsu. He's at 125, and a lot of people think that there's a good chance that he's just going to take things over. I've even seen people say he could be champion and what have you. And this is also a guy, he's got over 20 wins undefeated in amateur MMA, which you don't see too many times. A lot of times, like, amateur MMA fights, like you'll see on someone's record 4 or 5 fights, and then they jump to the pros. This dude is just, he had a ton of fights before going pro. And then, Cody Durden is also like, he's a good fighter too. And I think he's been getting a lot of hate for, a comment that I think was taken out of context. Last year he beat a Chinese fighter, and he said something on the lines of, I had to send him back to where he came from. And, like, we live in a time where, like, a lot of MMA media is also on this woke nonsense that I was talking about with ESPN. So a lot of people are calling Cody Durden a racist for saying I had to send him back to where he came from. It's just not a racist thing at all. Like, we hear it all the time in sports. Like, I didn't see it as racist. I think what happened is a lot of people took it out of context and thought, like, he was saying something racist towards a Chinese fighter and what have you. So he's another guy, like a lot of people going into this fight are rooting against him for that reason, because they think he's a racist, when he just maybe misworded, how he was saying something. But nonetheless, I think that's going to be a fun fight to watch. And then also on the prelims, it's funny because, like, this main card is so stacked that some of these fights could be on the main card, but they're on the prelims. And one of those is Jack Shore, who's 15-0, versus Timur Valiev, who's 18-2. I believe this is 135. And this is like a sleeper fight. A lot of people say this could be like the fight of the night. But it's a stacked fight. It's a crazy, crazy fight card. And then also, also on the prelims, Nikita Krylov versus Paul Craig. This is crazy. So Paul Craig came out, like, I think it was earlier this year. He kind of made it seem like he was going to retire maybe towards the end of this year. And he's kind of made some more statements this week saying, like, he wants to pursue a belt. And Krylov is also a big, a good fighter for him to face. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. And then I think this is the main card. Jumping into Jai Herbert versus Ilya Topuria. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. Topuria is moving up to 155. His last fight, he faced Ryan Hall. And that was like, he ended up just smashing Ryan Hall on the ground because Ryan Hall kept going for the same move over and over again. But Ilya is like a legit contender. He's 11-0. I'm curious to see, is like this a full move up to 155, or is he going to go back and forth? But, if this is a full move up to 155, they've already started setting up a next matchup for him. There was like a little backstage brawl with Paddy Pimblett. It was Ilya and some of his guys, and then Paddy was like on the opposite side of a table. They ended up like kind of throwing pushes at each other. Like I don't think any big punches or anything were landed. Paddy Pimblett said he bounced a hand sanitizer bottle off of Ilya's face, and they've just gone back and forth in the media, just talking crap to each other. But they're both Paddy's at 155, and now Ilya is fighting at 155, so that could set up a fight between them two, which I mean I think the UFC would like. They love that kind of controversial thing. And then Molly McCann versus Luana Carolina. That should be a fun fight. Gunnar Nelson is fighting for the first time since 2019 when he lost to Gilbert Burns. And he's fighting Takashi Soto, who's also fighting for the first time since November of 2020. So that should be fun. Gunnar Nelson's like in his area too, so I think the fans are going to be crazy hearing these guys come out. And then Paddy Pimblett is fighting Rodrigo Vargas. Rodrigo's a lot older. I think he's 36 and Paddy's 27. And he's on a one-fight win streak. But Paddy's got the hype. He's got the haircut. He's got the personality. He's got a bunch of big sponsorships. I think he signed a $1 million deal with Barstool and whatnot. Like a lot of people say, if Paddy continues to win, he could be like one of the next superstars in the UFC. The thing is though, is like we'll see like when he faces a big step up in competition. I think like realistically he should probably win this weekend. If he doesn't, that's going to be a lot of people are going to be knocking on him. But like, Paddy gets like comparisons to McGregor and Darren Till and stuff. But like we'll see if he is able to be that kind of fighter. His first fight, he gets a lot of criticism because he got wobbled, and then he won the fight by TKO. But he won. That's all that matters is if you get the wins. But we'll see if the hype train is real with Paddy Pimblett. I think he's super entertaining guy to watch. So I think no matter what happens, people are going to be tuning in to see what he's an exciting guy. And then co-main event. This is a banger fight. 145. You got Arnold Allen, who's 17-1, and Dan Hooker's coming back down to 145. So Arnold Allen, he's only lost one fight in his career, but it came much earlier, as in 2014. And he's in perfect position where if he gets a big win here, maybe he fights one more time and he's in the picture for the belt. And then Dan Hooker's can also be in that boat if he gets a win, because Dan Hooker's had kind of a back and forth at lightweight. He hasn't fought it at 145 in quite some time, but at lightweight he's gone back and forth. He'll get a win and then he'll get a couple losses. He's not a guy who's like washed or anything. It's just that he's a guy who's fighting the best guys in the world. And you win some, you lose some, and he's always fun to watch. He's another one of those guys that's just he's entertaining no matter like win or lose. So I think this is going to be a super fun fight to see. I'm curious to see what the outcome is. Honestly, I don't know who's going to win. This is also like one of those fights that you kind of root for both guys. I think both guys are really, really good dudes. So we'll see how that plays out. And then the main event, the fight that this card has been based on, is Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall is making a big step up fighting Volkov. If he gets this win, he's probably going to be in the top 5. And he's also like one of those guys who's on the come up, could be potentially one of the next big names in the heavyweight division. You got Cyril Gane, you got Dawkins. Aspinall's kind of in that same vein, and I'm really curious to see like what he looks like against the next step up in opponent. He has 2 losses in his career. One of them was a disqualification from a downward elbow, and then the other one was a heel hook, like very early in his career. I don't think Volkov is going to be going for heel hooks against him. For the most part, Volkov will stand and fight. But Aspinall is he's a super fun fighter. He's super quick. He's one of those like really good athletes at the heavyweight. Like it seems like heavyweight, you get like either a really heavy dude who's got crazy power, but they usually don't have a lot of volume or anything. But then you got some of these guys that are like really good athletes that are also heavyweights, like a Cyril Gane and a Tom Aspinall as well. I would say is in the same level. Maybe not the same level as Gane, but he's in that same category. And it's to be seen. He very well, if he gets a big win here, he's right in that conversation too. Like he might even be in the picture for fighting Gane. So that's a ton of fun to watch. Volkov too, he's always been in the mix of things. If he gets a win too, he's right back into things. So I'm super excited for UFC London to go down tomorrow. It is going to happen a lot earlier because London is obviously on a different time schedule than the United States. But nonetheless, it's a ton of fun fights to watch this weekend.